Hello, my friend that love the common sense like me, Fabrizio Ciancio from the Italian radio in Florida. Today, another time with you for talk with another common sense person that have a particular interest. Hello, Alan.
Hi, Fabrizio. How are you?
In a world where health is a priority, BioBasic Plus emerges as a daily ally for your optimal well-being. A product that not only contributes to your overall health, but at the same time also strengthens your immune system. BioBasic Plus is a nutraceutical enhanced with our exclusive Regenesis MIT molecular printing technology. This unique technology bio-enhances all active ingredients, making BioBasic Plus a product without equal. The specific synergy of vitamin C and vitamin D in BioBasic Plus counteracts the harmful action of the viral protein, aiding in the prevention and protection against the consequences of COVID. But BioBasic Plus doesn't stop there. Thanks to the plant extracts and active ingredients carefully selected and mixed by our scientific staff, BioBasic Plus regulates intestinal peristalsis, promotes the ossification of the liver, kidneys, and gastrointestinal tract. It also promotes alkalinization, cellular anti-aging, bone homeostasis, and the rebalance of microbiotics. That's why BioBasic Plus is your daily ally for top-notch health. A single product that protects you, strengthens you, and helps you live life to the fullest. Buy it now.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm very interested in you because I see what you write me. You are you are specialized and you are interested in different topics. Very interesting. Can you introduce yourself, please?
So I'm Alan Aversa. I have a background in physics and astronomy from the University of Arizona. I'm also been involved in politics. I've run for school board. I've run in 2012. I ran for U.S. House of Representatives in a district in Iowa. I've also run for state representative. So I'm very much involved in politics as well as in physics. And in physics, my specialty is the history of 19th century electricity and magnetism. So I'm very interested in the history of physics, the interplay between science and politics, why certain theories become popular and others that might even be better theories are neglected throughout the history of science. That's interesting questions that I like to ask.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Before that we start as interview, I want to make a standard question that I make to all as my guest. And what is the definition of common sense or good sense that you use in your life?
So I would call that, so that's another topic I'm interested in is philosophy. I would call myself a realist philosopher. So I believe there is a real world out there that we can observe and that we can explore using our senses. So when I think of common sense, I think of what we can know about the world through our five senses. All of what we know in our intellect, in our mind, comes through our senses, through our sense of sight, our sense of touch, taste, feeling something, experimenting with it. That's primary. Even physics experiments that deal with atoms or things that we can't even see. Ultimately, it comes down to our senses. Do we see a dial on the thing going a certain way, or do we hear some sound of something bubbling or fizzing? So when I think of common sense, I think of getting back to reality, not living in a virtual world on a computer screen or on our cell phones or in this sort of make-believe world that the geoengineer sort of people want to create for us. I think of getting back to reality. I just went on a walk last night, and west of where I live there's a lot of farming land, which is, I live right in South Phoenix. And it was great just being out there, getting back to reality, the land, the cows, the smell of the lettuce that they were growing out there. And so when I think of common sense, I think of, yeah, getting back to our senses. So our five senses, getting
Okay.
back to that connection with nature and with reality.
Yeah, yes, right. When I started to be interested to the common sense, I started 15 years ago, and I don't know explain what is the common sense because, of course, I check in the dictionary, but not was more clear. And I started to check in internet common sense, and I found common politics common sense. I found religion common sense, but or psychological common sense was
Mhm.
good to understand, but nothing that is the common sense. What is
Yeah.
common sense? Because my question was. If all the people that I ask, and I ask many people, no, if he is a common sense person, yes, I am a common sense. I use common sense. Wow. But if all the people use common sense, why this society notice too much common sense? What's happened? Is something that is wrong. And I look in internet for find what is the correct definition. Don't find in internet. I found example, um, only one website that explain in 21 example what is the action common sense means
Uh-huh.
I try to put together a new definition that I want to go in the dictionary can be in the future. And for me, what I thinking is the common sense is take a decision or judge the action of someone that go in the direction of the best, the measure survival for the major number of person. Of course, also survival for or lifestyle of animals and the
Hmm.
habitat in general, but need to be a solution that is okay, good, work good for a long time, and need to thinking to stay with the spiritual aspect of the man, of course.
Hmm.
Means this all this is the common sense, not is something that is good for me. Okay, that is go in my pocket. This is good. Yes, this is common sense, of course, but we live in the society. Means is I think is important thinking also to the other people, and I think
Hmm.
this is why you are interested in politics. Means the next question is why politics? Why? What is the connection from the politics and science? Why you are interested in this?
So yeah, so that kind of came about, especially I saw it when I studied 19th century electricity and magnetism and the history of the development of it. So Andre Ampere was a French physicist. That's where we get the word amps, the unit of measurement of current of electricity. So he did these experiments involving wires and showed that when you put current through the wires will attract one another, or if the currents are going opposite directions, the wires will repel one another. He did experiments in the 1820s regarding that, and he became known as the Newton of electricity because he did some just incredible experiments, just like Newton did, and he used the Newtonian philosophy, Newtonian physics in order to understand electricity and magnetism. And then it wasn't until the 1860s that the Scottish physicist Maxwell, James Clerk Maxwell, came up with this famous idea that light is actually an oscillation of magnetic and electric waves. And his theory had to do, well, his theory at the time was more, yeah, that light and that electricity was propagating through a medium. And then there's another physicist, Faraday, who came up with the field concept, that there's these things called electromagnetic fields that, kind of this invisible thing that propagates through space. Ampere was actually really opposed to, I mean, he didn't even know the field concept because he lived a couple decades before Faraday. But he didn't think that was necessary to have these extra concepts like fields in order to understand electricity and magnetism. And so why? And then there was also Wilhelm Weber, who was a German physicist who he took Ampere's force law that he developed based upon the experiments he did in the 1820s. And he took that force law and created what's known as Weber's force law. So it's just like Newton. So Newton had a force law for just gravitationally attracting masses. Weber's force law has to do with electric charges that are, no matter how they're moving, if they're accelerating to one another, they can actually attract, or if they're moving in a certain way, they can actually repel one another, which is really interesting because you would think that a positive and a negative charge will always attract. Well, according to Weber's law, depending on how they move relative to one another, they could actually repel one another. And the advantage of Weber's force law is that it doesn't have all these extra things. It doesn't have fields. It doesn't distinguish between electric and magnetic. So magnetic phenomena is actually just a manifestation of the movement of electrical charges. So everything comes down to electricity. So it's a much simpler conception of nature. So why did Maxwell's theory in 1860s, why did that become what's now taught in all the physics departments in the whole world? And you won't find a single physics textbook at the undergraduate or the graduate level that mentions Weber's force law, or even Ampere's force law. They'll have a certain form of Ampere's force law in some books, but not the general original force law that Ampere wrote. Why isn't this? And it has to do a lot with politics, because the theory that becomes more known is the one that comes from a country that might have more political influence. So, Britain, and it was undergoing the Industrial Revolution at that time. So their ideas and tended to spread a lot more than in France or in Germany, even though they had some very good, Weber and Ampere, came up with some very good, they did some excellent work. But why did Maxwell's theory become the most? But well, it has to do with whoever was in charge of the academic politics. Whoever could say, what sort of courses are being taught to the students, and even just different philosophies. I mean, the British had a different philosophy than the French did, or than the Germans. And so it's still an interesting question. So I ran across a French physicist, Pierre Duhem. He wrote a book on the history of Maxwell's theories, and I ended up actually translating that from French into English and published it with Springer. And he had, at the very beginning of the book, he has a very good overview of all the way up. And I think he wrote the book in 1904, 1905, sometime around there, which is interesting. That's, the year when Einstein came up with his 5 famous papers. And so Duhem wrote this book at the very beginning. It was very interesting. It kind of, it was like when it came to Weber's force law, it was like, this was it. It was just too simple, I think, is the reason why people thought. I mean, mathematically, actually, the equation is a nonlinear differential equation, which is, mathematically, it's kind of difficult. So maybe that was another aspect. They didn't have the mathematical. Sophus Lie was a Norwegian mathematician who came up with a lot of the group theory of solving differential equations, and Sophus Lie's theories were a little bit later, toward the end of the 19th century. So maybe that was another reason why Weber's law just kind of got forgotten, because it didn't have the mathematical ability to really understand all the solutions to the equation. That could be another reason. Duham's explanation was more that it was kind of too simple of an explanation, and it didn't accord with the British sort of, they thought that to explain something, you had to come up with this sort of machine, that the world was made out of machines. And they had Lodge, Oliver Lodge was a physicist who, if you ever see any of his books, it's really fascinating. He tries to understand electricity, magnetism, with these diagrams of machines, like little gears spinning around and little things going. And that was the British way of, they thought that they could get to an explanation if they could come up with a machine that showed how it worked. The French and the German method was a little more abstract, I think. And so with Weber's law, he came up with just this equation. He didn't say, oh, this is how the electricity propagates from here to there. He said that, that if you just have 2-point masses, and they're a certain distance apart, moving at a certain relative velocity and acceleration, we can figure out the force. He doesn't go into trying to say, okay, what's actually going on? What's causing this force? Is there some sort of wave going from one place to another? And some people didn't think that was much of an explanation, just to be able to write an equation and say, okay, if you know where they are and how they're moving, here's the force. So his force law was known as an instantaneous force law. So it was different from Maxwell's, where the forces propagated with these fields at the speed of light from one place to another, and you could kind of, with Maxwell's theories, you could kind of picture it in your mind better. So maybe that was another reason why Maxwell's theory. And so and interestingly, Maxwell highly praised Weber and Ampere. Did you want to ask a question real quick, or?
Yes, yeah, you are too much precise, and I know that all these things is very interesting. The mathematics, the energy, very interesting. Okay, the next question that I want to ask you is about censorship, science, censorship. From academic viewpoint and politics viewpoint, what do you think about?
That's interesting you bring that up. So I mentioned copyright when I told you. So copyright, if you ever look at the history of that, that's very interesting. It's actually, today it's turned into sort of a form of censoring. Originally, copyright in England was meant to prevent printers. So, when it took many months to make books, to put the plates together and for the printing presses, it was to prevent multiple companies from doing the same work over a period of a month, a couple months, without, ever knowing, oh, I was making the same book that you were making. And now we just wasted our time because we did twice the work for just, one price. So that's where the copyright laws originally came from. And now it's kind of turned, now with the internet, things can be copied, instantly. And so it's kind of an antiquated thing that's turned into more like, how can we suppress information? So censorship is a big issue. And I'm using a Linux computer right now, so I'm very into open source, open access books. I think that's definitely becoming the future, and it's really interesting with open source software like the internet, the Apache web server. Something like 3/4 of websites use this open source software, and anybody can download it, change it, improve it however they want. There's no one company that has ownership over the source code. And I think that's another new wave of the future, that things are becoming more open access to information, and this is really helping science. It used to be, and even the mainstream scientific community is becoming more open with the data. It used to be, if you worked on a scientific project and got data from a telescope or something, you would have a year where you could work on your paper and do your results. But now it's the data is just going into the public domain right away for any researcher to download. There's sky surveys like the Sloan Digital Sky Survey that takes images of the sky in many different bandwidths, and they let that information out to the public. There's also the Very Large Telescope, that's or the Large Binocular Telescope, which is actually here in eastern Arizona. It's taking lots of data that's just petabytes of information that's just being released into the public. So I think this move toward open access, where the average citizen can have access to all this scientific data, is really going to improve things in terms of censorship and getting rid of that dogmatism that that's what's really been afflicting science. Like Einstein's theories of special and general relativity. they're based on certain assumptions, and there's scientists now questioning some of those assumptions and saying it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to build all of physics on just these particular assumptions. It could be that things could travel faster than the speed of light. I mean, that was really just an assumption that Einstein made, that there was this speed limit, but it could actually be a different way. So making things more open, making the data more open, that'll help get rid of this dogmatism that's been afflicting science, and help there to be more free inquiry. So
Yes, but you think that the information that the new science, the new mathematics found and try to explain is available for all, or some censorship like happen other different argument happen also in the science. The science is scientific, or is something that is derived from the politics.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's certainly, anytime you have people working together, there's going to be politics involved. Yeah. So, yeah, I think with like journals, I mean, there's actually a lot of interesting, even Einstein's original papers, I think, were rejected from one of the journals he submitted it to, and then somebody stumbled upon it and said, well, this is a neat idea. Maybe we should actually publish it. So that's another thing that that's the scientific community as a whole, though, is moving more toward open access. Like there's a website, archive.org, that puts all the preprints. So, before they're actually published in the scientific journal, the authors will put the paper up on that website. And, just for anybody to download for free to take a look at it. And then, of course, the official version will be published in the standard scientific journals. But a lot of the scientific journals are open to that, open to authors actually putting their work out there before the journal publishes it, just so that it's accessible to students or other professors. And but
Okay.
yeah.
all the knowledge that we study, all the books, all the TV that we see change as mind, because give information. If this information is right, the theory can be arrived to have something that can be worked and not be more a theory. This is real. But other things can be, if you have false data, and you can arrive to the solution, and we have only problems that you can't modify. You can resolve this problem. Miss, what do you think about this?
So I think any theory, no matter how incorrect it may be, can always be fixed. There's always some grain of truth, and even in the theory that's not very. So I don't think that theories are true or false. I think there's better explanations, and there's not so good explanations. This was actually one of Pierre Duham's philosophical ideas, that when we come up with a theory, there's a lot of assumptions that they're based upon. And when we find something that seems to go against the theory, we don't know which one of those assumptions is wrong. Because a theory is built upon a whole bunch of interrelating assumptions. So all we could do is say, okay, there's one of those assumptions is wrong, but let's see if we can modify one of them and see if it comes up with a better correspondence with reality. So that's what I would define truth as, how well the theory agrees with the experimental data. So yeah, I mean, it's true that there's a lot of things, a lot of falsehoods, a lot of things going around that influence the way we view reality, but I think we can always fine tune it. There's always some grain of truth that we can modify and in order to make us more in tune with reality. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that we need to teach as children in the school, and we need to find the solution to try to distinguish the true from the fake information.
Hmm.
because if you want that to have more common sense in the as a society, because too many false data we have in the life means we can make it better if we are able to find the true and isolate these and distinguish and remove the false data. And this model, I think this society can be go away. Means it's good that some people that want to do in the politics and do something for the citizen use this viewpoint for help as people in all the American is important, no?
Hmm. It's
Okay.
interesting you bring that up. My wife has taught kindergarten before, and one of the standards they have that the kindergartners have to master is the ability to distinguish between make believe and real. Like what's make believe and what's real, and that's a problem even we adults have too. We hear all these things. Interestingly, in science, 95% or maybe even more of what we know about science, we have never ever done the experiment ourselves. Like I've never done the experiment to measure to come up with Ampere's force law and to and to actually derive the equation and check that myself to make I'm relying on just the word of these good physicists that have come before to really do that. But I think, yeah, getting back to doing experiments, doing these fundamental experiments, Weber's or Ampere's experiments, you can do that with a battery and just some wire. It's not that, I mean, kids can do this for their science fair projects, to show that when you put current through, the wires will actually move. They'll actually come and touch one another. So getting back to that common sense, getting back to doing the experiments, will help get rid of all these extra things that have been added into the theories, like fields. And it used to be in the past, they thought that the stars went around these things called epicycles, and then there's all these extra things, but nobody ever saw the epicycle. It was just this imaginary thing that they to try to understand why the stars were moving and the planets were moving the way that they moved. But getting back to, yeah, what's real? Like I said, common sense is that realism, getting back to reality. That'll really help.
Okay, perfect. Okay, the time is ended, and you want to tell something at all as listeners. You want to give some advice, some things.
Yeah, I would say, if you're interested in politics, get involved with your school boards. Run for a school board position in your area, because the local level, that's where the battle is really being fought for. What's being taught in the schools. Are they teaching the actual experiments and reality, or are they just teaching make-believe theories in the school? And you won't really know until you go to your school board and ask. Get involved in politics. It's not that hard. Yeah, you just have to talk to the people in your area. Go to your Secretary of State if you're running for a state position, or if you're running for a local position. Find out from somebody local how to get on the ballot, and you can make a difference.
Yeah. We need to try to make the difference, but the intention is very important. The people, if you want to do something, you don't stop. Like many science demonstrate us that we need to continue until
Yeah.
arrive at the solution. Yes, I agree. Perfect. Thank you for your time for today. It can be we can make another interview.
Yeah,
when
this was interesting. Yeah, I didn't expect it to get into the philosophical aspects, and that's good. Yeah, it's good to ask those questions.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for all. Thank you for our listener that listen all this interview, and we see and stay in touch, and we see the next time. Okay.
All right, all right. Grazie,
Bye. Hello
Fabrizio.
for all.
Ciao.
In a world where health is a priority, BioBasic Plus emerges as a daily ally for your optimal well-being. A product that not only contributes to your overall health, but at the same time also strengthens your immune system. BioBasic Plus is a nutraceutical enhanced with our exclusive Regenesis MIT molecular printing technology. This unique technology bio-enhances all active ingredients, making BioBasic Plus a product without equal. The specific synergy of vitamin C and vitamin D in BioBasic Plus counteracts the harmful action of the viral protein, aiding in the prevention and protection against the consequences of COVID. But BioBasic Plus doesn't stop there. Thanks to the plant extracts and active ingredients carefully selected and mixed by our scientific staff, BioBasic Plus regulates intestinal peristalsis, promotes the ossification of the liver, kidneys, and gastrointestinal tract. It also promotes alkalinization, cellular anti-aging, bone homeostasis, and the rebalance of microbiotics. That's why BioBasic Plus is your daily ally for top-notch health. A single product that protects you, strengthens you, and helps you live life to the fullest. Buy it now.